Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Resiliency Redefined. I'm Robyne, and today, oh my goodness, we're going to take a big dive into the topic of burnout because so many people reached out and asked me to talk a wee bit more about burnout. So I know we've touched the edges of burnout before on these episodes, but today we're going to spend a good 20 minutes taking a deep dive into burnout. So first and foremost, I just want to hold space to say, whatever energy level you have for this conversation, you are so welcome to just come as you are. If you just want to kind of sit back and just kind of listen, that's okay. Like there's a place for you to be informed. There's a place for you to maybe pick up a few ideas. Now, if you are like, no, Robyne, this one's for me. And like, I need to like take notes, post-it note, like I'm in this. I'm so glad that you are here as well. So please feel free to interact with these ideas in the way that best serves you. Now, burnout is something that folks have been talking about for a long time. It's not a new concept, but it seems as though it's getting a spotlight right now because some statistics are suggesting that like 1 in 3 people are experiencing occupational burnout. Now, I actually think that's pretty low based on just my observations and noticings of the groups that I get to work with, that I don't think it's a third of people. Like, really, I think we're actually probably pushing closer to like 50%. And I think what's really important to recognize is that when we're talking about burnout, there are different forms of burnout, but ultimately, a lot of the research in this field is around what's considered occupational burnout. So, this has to do with work. Having said that, I want to recognize that there are unpaid positions and roles that also like contribute and people experience burnout. And it doesn't make you a bad person, for example, if you're experiencing burnout, managing your personal life. Like there's areas that we experience burnout that isn't just occupational, not just paid or remunerated work. We also see burnout in our personal lives, especially for people who hold the role of caregiving. We know that this is a very particular group. And especially if we think about, a lot of people are in this position where they're getting it from like multiple directions. Perhaps you're navigating children or little ones, you're navigating a difficult boss at work, plus now you're navigating and supporting aging parents and relatives. So we're seeing all of these different places where we are being trained in an attempt to show up and care for the people in our lives. So today we're going to talk about occupational burnout, but I wanted to just make sure to hold space that we can see burnout in other areas that are not just paid roles. Okay, so first of all, what is burnout? There are 3 key variables that are used when people are assessing occupational burnout. Number 1, exhaustion. Like deep exhaustion. Like, I mean, like you're tired is tired. Like you are bone weary. Okay. So exhaustion, number 1. Number 2, and this is the one that you're probably going to notice, especially when you see it in other people, is cynicism. They get this like chip on their shoulder. They become so rigid about new ideas or just confidence in leadership, confidence in other people. Like these people just have like a bone to pick with everyone, like so cynical. I even can give you a quick example. I was chatting with someone, and before I even made the ask of a potential solution for one of these areas I was navigating, like they said no before I even got my question out. Like when I was like, is this even possible? Like I didn't even get to say that with a potential solution. They already said no, you just can't do that. Wow, right? Like that cynicism, just that rigidness is symptom number two. Symptom number three, and this is what's fascinating because this is the one that kind of creeps up on people. It's a decrease in efficacy or performance, which means we start to make errors. We start to drop the ball, and we might not even notice them at first. And what we see over time, there's this massive cumulative effect of all three of those variables. So, tired, like chronic exhaustion, this idea of cynicism or this negative attitude. And then number three is just a decrease in performance. It like takes you longer to do things. Now, those are the three variables that we see, especially when we're looking at a diagnosis or people are talking about it. The other thing to draw, just to draw your attention to, there aren't necessarily any biomarkers for burnout, right? So it's not like we can give you a test or, yes, there are some psychometric tests we can do, but ultimately those are self-report. Like there isn't just like take your temperature, boom, you have burnout. It's not like that. There are these associated behaviors and like this erosion of your capacity. Okay, so those are the three variables that we see, like using that kind of standard way of diagnosing. Now, the other part that I want to bring to your attention is that within those three areas, there are so many like sub behaviors we're going to start to see. So, for example, I know for me personally, when I have crossed that threshold into what we call stress, which is, remember, that's a great place to hang out. This is where we feel energized and we're well resourced. And yeah, things are important, but we're in it, we're locked in and we're managing. When we cross that threshold into distress, I notice for me personally, everything becomes urgent. Like I feel like I have to solve the problem like right in real time. I feel like there's like this sense of just like rapid requirements for responses. Like it feels like this stuff cannot wait. My friends, the majority of things can wait. What can't wait is literally life preservers, right? Like like things that are like imminent. But the majority of our stuff, it can get a response in a bit of time, but we just rush into feeling like we just got to get it all done. Another thing, and I've talked about this before, and this got some pretty good traction on social media, is this idea that people in distress are very competitive with each other. They feel threatened by everyone versus when we're in that place of regulation or what we call that stress zone, we feel in collaboration, right? We're happy to work with people. We celebrate other people's wins because that's just evidence. Heck, we can win as well. Like there's enough to go around. We have this efficiency and abundant mindset. When we're in distress, we feel that scarcity or that shortage where all of a sudden we get this again that little chip on our shoulder and like, oh, must be nice for them, like they're so lucky. It's like, no, this is hard work that we choose to lean into. Okay, so we also see those behaviors. Other behaviors might be this idea that we get to the point where burnout is activating some of our physiological reactions in our nervous system for things like freezing, where it's like we don't even know what to do. Like you're just literally sitting there and you're just like, I don't know what my next move is. Like I have no idea. Or you feel trapped, whereas in, wow, this is the life I've built, right? I've built this life and now I'm just stuck with it. I am stuck feeling this way because this is my reality. Or perhaps you might notice fawning responses where you like just basically acquiesce. You just don't even care anymore. You just want it all to like just other people just do the work, other people make the decisions, and I'm just going through the motions, right? What we call this idea of, our nervous system thinks it's easier just to roll over than it is to stand up for ourselves. So there's a lot to unpack in burnout. And I don't want to spend too much time. Like, you're like, hi, I'm in it. Like, can we just move on to what am I supposed to do about it? Well, thankfully, my friends, this is the place where I love to be able to share some research informed practices that actually work. Now, one of the things that I saw in my work that I did with people and organizations, first and foremost, is awareness, We got to build awareness that this is actually a real thing. And this is not a weakness. This isn't like, gosh, I wish you learned how to delegate or you figured out the right app to use to be able to solve your burnout. You cannot outthink burnout. And something that I know that goes along with this awareness is acknowledging that burnout is the curse of the strong. It is people who care so deeply about all of the parts, all of the people, all of the things all around them that eventually they lose the capacity to receive. They lose the capacity to be able to like look after themselves while they're trying to carry the weight of the world with just two hands. So, awareness, it's the curse of the strong. If you burned out, it's a sign that you care so freaking much about so many things. And we have to find a way to make sure that we care about you too, that you care about you too. Now, another interesting learning I came upon is it isn't the amount of work. Now, I know this kind of goes against that popular belief about burnout, where, in some of the research, it says, two-thirds of people say that they are given unreasonable tasks at work, like beyond the scope of like what's humanly reasonable to accomplish. Like two-thirds of people say, I'm given too much work. But what I saw when I was working with people, it's not just the volume of the work, it's time that you spend outside of your values that's going to bring the injury of burnout to the forefront faster. So what does that mean? Time outside of values. If my value is family, and I'm carrying so much of this like workload to the point where I'm missing basketball games. I'm missing conversation with my loved ones. I'm not able to pick up the phone when my loved ones call me. Like if I am just so embroiled in all of the work that I'm missing the things that matter most, that is going to be that's going to be like the major injury for me. That's what's going to put me at greatest risk of burning out fastest when I'm not showing up in alignment with my values. Let's say, for example, your value might be travel, right? You love to explore, you love new adventures, but because of the state of the world, you haven't been able to travel. You haven't been able to explore, to plan, to like imagine and then go out and do those things. Eventually, that's going to start to erode your sense of your ability, your confidence, your identity can start to get eroded. So, the time outside of our values. Now, another interesting finding that goes with this is that we saw in our research that when groups, organizations, teams, leaders gave people just that wee bit of spaciousness, that they were still able to show up for the things that matter most to them, like leaving early to get your kid to practice, or being able to take a parent to a doctor's appointment, or be able to, take that holiday, that week holiday, and not worry about the mountain of email that's going to be waiting for you when you got back. Like you actually got a holiday. We saw that when people have that wee bit of agency, that little bit of flexibility, that adaptiveness, what happened in return is those persons were so freaking loyal to the company. Like they were so loyal to their leader. They were willing to go that little bit extra every once in a while because they felt as though that their entire person was actually being supported by that leader. They were allowed to be themselves in a professional role. So, having said that, that little bit of flexibility makes a huge difference to retaining your top talent, keeping the good people working if they have agency to do the stuff that matters most to them. Okay, so those are some of the things that we know to be true. Where are we going to get the sense of feeling better in the middle of this? Okay, so often we try to outthink burnout, right? Like when this quarter is over, this season's over, these negotiations are over, then I'm going to be okay. F that noise, my friends. It doesn't work like that. What does work is that we have to be okay in the messy middle. We got to be okay right now. And to back that point up, we even see, for example, when people take long stress leaves, we can get them out of these environments and we can get people back to good. But if we're not careful, when we put people back into that environment, they're going to regress very quickly. They're going to regress back into those symptoms of burnout so fast. So the idea is that we have to learn strategies in context. Okay, we have to learn how to navigate it. Having said that, though, If you are literally in the middle of the most difficult, toxic, overwhelming situation, you're going to need radical intervention and a radical rest, which means you do have to step out. Like you literally have to remove yourself to the environment to start the healing. Okay. We can't learn all of those strategies when we are deeply like embroiled in the middle of distress, or what we're like talking about, like kind of like marinating in the misery of what's going on. Sometimes we actually need to get a break. But my invitation is we want to be careful that the break doesn't become too long, that it's hard for us to use our strategies in context. So, yes, an immediate break, absolute radical intervention is so important if we're really, really in the in the thick of it. For the majority of people, though, if we get just a little bit of a break, at like just again, just really intentional time away, a few days just to kind of regroup, recalibrate, set up our environment for success, often that can do a really big turnaround in a pretty substantive way in a pretty short amount of time. So, what does that look like? So, again, if you are in that with like the grips of it where you can barely breathe, in that situation, my friend, you do need to make sure that you're getting that stress leave, you're getting that opportunity to reset, whatever that looks like. I do believe, though, there's a lot of space for us to play around in when we are just like kind of in the early seasons or that early stages of burnout. There's a lot we can do. Okay, where do we begin? Number one, simplification. Absolutely simplify. We want to make decisions, like take as much decision making off of the table. Okay, so this might be committing to, breakfast for dinner, for like breakfast items for dinner for the week, right? Like easy meal selection. Just make it so simple. This is not the time to like dial in your nutrition and try to come up with a new strategy. Like, no, like literally just comfort food, things that are easy, grab and go, and just like take all the noise, the food noise, the exercise noise, and literally just mute it. Okay, so radically simplify just your nutrition. Now, if you're able to add things into your eating that are going to give us like really good outcomes, so I'm talking about like, for example, like lots of berries, lots of things that are going to really help with like inflammation and things like that. Find a little wee room for that, perhaps in that place. But again, you don't have to like go all like locked in, dialed in. This isn't the season for that. This is around soothing the nervous system and just add a little bit of fruit. Okay, so we're going to simplify the eating. We're also going to simplify the movement. If we could just get outside, even if it's cold, rainy, like, oh my goodness, Ontario is still getting walloped with so much snow. And I know other places in Canada are as well. And heck, even Pensacola, Florida just had snow. Anyway, we won't go down that idea of global warming not really happening. Okay, simplify the movement. 30-minute walk, regardless of the weather outside. If you could do that first thing in the morning, just already have your running shoes, your winter boots, your sweaters, your hats, your mittens, your toques, your scarves, all of it just at the front door. As soon as you open your eyes, I want you just to grab water and find a way to get outdoors. Okay. Even at the beginning, if it's literally just going outside and standing outside. Like, let's say you don't even have the energy for a 30-minute walk. That's okay. Just literally go outside, just try for 5 minutes and then maybe 5 minutes more. And just even walk slowly. Like, we don't have to have some like Napoleonic march speed. Like, just walk outdoors, just slow the pace down. So, we're going to just simplify our food, we're going to simplify movement. And then I want you to find a place for expression. Now, what that means is we got to let some of this stuff out. We've likely been holding so much stuff, and I want you to find a form of expression. And here's the sweet spot, okay? The sweet spot is finding a form of expression that like ties into one of your like deep values. Okay, so here's an example. I am somebody who has this really deep value of justice, right? Like, I think the world should work a particular way. I'm mindful that it doesn't work a particular way. So often we call that just world theory, that we think the world should work. So, for example, people who do good should have good outcomes. People who make poor choices should have negative outcomes. Clearly, that's not how it is. However, I am so like attached to this practice of justice. So when I'm feeling the edges of burnout, one of my ways of expression when obviously I can't like throw over tables and like blow things up and, in terms of like, obviously not literally, um, or burn the bridges. I love to watch programming that actually allows that feeling of justice to get amplified. So maybe I'm watching some Denzel Washington in some of his movies, right? He's somebody who has a lot of social justice roles. And again, what I find, even just like carving out that couple hours, I watch a show where I'm seeing justice enacted, maybe a little vigilante justice, but nevertheless, it's like I see justice being channeled. What that does is it actually gives me a form of expression, right? In a totally socially appropriate way. Now, Freud had a field day when he used to talk about this dark energy and how we find ways of expressing dark energy. And there's no judgment or shame. It's just, again, allowing us to put some of these emotions in place. And what's really amazing about the brain, when it sees justice being served, if that's a variable or a factor for you, it feels satisfied. So for me, curling up with like a rom-com isn't going to cut it, right? Like I love to see that programming that's going to have that element of justice. So my invitation for you is to think about what that big feeling is that maybe is a bit stuck. Perhaps it's just a wee bit stuck. And then think about it as like, okay, if I'm too tired to like express it with a lot of movement or, to go to, therapy and unpack it, like what's another way of you to process it or digest it? That's an example of justice that I just gave you. Okay, let's do another one in case maybe you're not one of those like justice, that's maybe not your variable. Let's say it's around comfort, right? Like it's just like you just want somebody kind of like comfort. Like you just want somebody to kind of maybe look after you for a change. Okay, so where can you find that comfort, that sense of somebody does have your back? Maybe it is in a deep, beautiful conversation with a loved one or a friend. Maybe it is in literature or fiction, and you find a story that just really shows and really gives you that sense of that big hug, perhaps, or whatever that is that soothes your nervous system. Seek out content in the form of expression. Now, my friends, this isn't going to solve burnout, but what it will do is offer you a wee bit of reprieve. So, quieting the food noise, getting a little bit of movement in your day, first thing in the morning, and finding a way to express some of those stuck feelings is a good, solid start. Now, folks, we haven't even like scratched the surface of all the things that I wanted to tell you about burnout. So let's say this is part one. And part two, I'll jump in here next time and I'll give you a few more ideas and things to noodle around. Ultimately, what's so important to me is that you see that you are doing the best you can in this particular season with the tools, the gifts, and the skills that you have, and you're doing okay. You are okay. And this too will pass. Better days are ahead. A big, bright future is in reach of you feeling better. And I just want to know I see you. I feel how big this is for so many people. And I don't want to trivialize it or minimize it. Your feelings are so effing real. Oh my goodness, I dropped way too many effings in this episode. My bad. Okay, maybe a few too many Denzel Washington movies. My friends, thanks for listening. Tune in next time where we're going to do a part two into burnout. And as always, if you have any questions, wonderments, curiosities, shoot them my way. I'm here to be useful. Take good care, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.